Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello friends, welcome to this very innovation related subject, innovation in marketing and marketing of innovation. I would slightly overstep if I mention that it is an innovative subject, but here we would be looking at marketing with not only in consonance with innovation, but with the point of view of innovation. There are several important authors who have written on this subject. People have been working on this for quite some time, and we will find those reasons here. In this session and the subsequent session, I would be opening up with lots of perspective around this subject, and then we will be going in a sequential manner where we would be using several kinds of references from different kinds of papers, books and good work which has been done. But you would realize that all the text which has been written and which we would be referring to, and all the examples which I would be using here, those are related to organizations and marketers foreseeing something. Many times I would be using that foresight in comparison to marketers getting stuck up somewhere and then using innovation. But then there would be a stark difference between these two kinds of approaches. I would prefer that if we reach to a point wherein, being a student of marketing and in general also, you try to develop an insight on foreseeing marketing with a perspective of innovation. I would be opening up on the context of marketing of innovation as well, which would be the later part of this course, wherein we would be focusing upon how to market innovation. And then you would realize that there are several aspects which we have to ponder upon once we look into this thing. But let me start the journey by focusing upon, and I would not be using too much of definitions, too many definitions in terms of elaborating upon innovation and marketing, but though we would be building upon the case with reference to definitions as well. But let me start with, looking at the context of innovation, and I have been talking about this in my other subjects as well, especially innovation and business models and the context of entrepreneurship, which we have been building upon for past 7 or 8 years now, and that subject has been taken well. That innovation has largely been looked upon with reference to an incremental change. But when we say incremental change, I would draw your attention towards not being linearly upwards. We can look at things with a retrospective perspective as well, and then bring that thing backwards towards as part of marketing innovation, or let us say innovation in within the elements of marketing. I would just break this thought with reference to one or two quick examples, and then I would be elaborating upon that later on. You see, today we are focusing upon Indian knowledge systems. It is a very important development which has taken place, and I am happy to share with you that under new education policy, whole of this country is focusing upon looking forward with whatever upcoming technological changes and developments can be taken upfront. On the other side, going versatile in terms of developing a holistic perspective, and on the other side looking with a retrospective analysis into our own wealth of scriptures and knowledge which we have, and then bringing it upwards and coupling up or joining everything to come up with lots of innovation, and that is what exactly I am referring to. For example, few years back when we were talking about wellness, we were focusing upon several things which science has developed for us, several methodologies which science has developed for us, several kinds of supplements and complementary medicines which science has developed for us. But then revolution in adaptation of yog I should say, not yoga, yog came in, and then people started focusing upon their wellness with perspective of yog, adaptation of yog, and developing a spiritual quotient as well. And we have seen that during the difficult times of pandemic, several people, they focused upon their wellness and health with this orientation, and then traditional medicines or traditional herbal plants, medicinal aromatic plants, this whole science got a huge impetus. People started working on that and so on. Today we are again looking into scriptures with lots of insights which can be used for contemporary decision making, and then definitely in scientific knowledge as well. I remember when I was working with Ganga River Basin Environment Management Plan in a team of IIT consortium, then we went through several kinds of scriptures which have a log of how Ganga has come from upside towards downstream and what kinds of changes this holy river has taken up. So, those scriptures helped us a lot, along with the contemporary GIS maps and several kinds of technological advancements which have taken place in due course of time, and that is precisely the point. So, innovation is to look upon from both the sides and coming up with the best solution. That is where we would be focusing upon in due course of time, but at this moment let me slightly elaborate upon innovation in marketing. You see, marketing basically is at the forefront of everything, and especially when we look at things with the perspective of development of markets. I would be definitely focusing upon the context of development of markets, and here again I would request you to think in terms of market opportunity development as well. For example, if I am a producer or a marketer, what kind of opportunity for my products and services, along with the opportunity for my stakeholders in terms of the complete value chain development or market development can be seen. It is not complex at all, just remember this, and I would be structurally elaborating upon this in due course of time. So, the fundamental role of marketing is market development. That is what contemporary authors have agreed upon, and whole of the industry also agrees upon. We have seen several kinds of examples wherein people have sort of developed the market in due course of time to develop the whole industry as such, and those examples can traverse from technology and services and even Ayurveda products and so many other products, even food chains and so on. So, let us focus upon the initial part of our discussion, and here before I go into definitions in terms of innovations in marketing and marketing of innovations, I would like to demonstrate few aspects through some structural inputs from my side. But before that, would you agree with me that somehow marketing, as I was talking about innovation, looking at it from both the sides, marketing has linearly been thinking in terms of incremental changes, in terms of scaling up things and reaching to the customers. If you do agree with me, this has been historical development. And sometimes I recall these lines written by Mr. Prem Dhawan, छोड़ो कल की बातें, कल की बात पुरानी, नए दौर में लिखेंगे मिलकर नई कहानी, हम हिंदुस्तानी. Hum Hindustani was the name of the movie, and these lyrics, beautiful lyrics which have been written by Mr. Prem Dhawan, talks about, the line says that leave the past behind and let us write a new story, jointly write a new story, and that is the lesson actually. So, leave the past behind definitely, but take the lessons from there and jointly write a new story. Jointly writing a new story actually is contemporary marketing. That means if you jointly write a new story, that means you are looking towards the complete value chain, and that is the perspective of marketing. For example, in today's parlance, if a B2B company is there and they are working for on order basis for consumer products companies, or let us say their buyers, and these people, B2B manufacturers, are the suppliers, how well they can develop the market for their buyers. That should be the prime context of whole of the value chain development. Apart from that, there are several value chain partners and we should be looking at all of them one by one, but again immediate beneficiaries should be looked upon with the perspective of their benefit rather than just our profits being focused upon. Marketing has traversed a long way with this thought process, but not so prominently in text and literature, and that is the effort in this subject, wherein the lines from contemporary marketing text should slightly be tweaked upon with the perspective of how we should be focusing upon the role of marketing with innovation in upcoming times. But to start with, there are two elements which I would be focusing upon. One, historical element which says that how have we reached here, and on the other side I would be focusing upon how to start thinking about, how should we developing a thinking about it, and do not just think too wide at this moment, just focus upon what I wish to present in front of you. For example, to understand that what could have been done or what should be done, to understand that better, try and eliminate things from your wardrobe or your house as a consumer. Look at things without which you would have done good. That means they are there, that makes a difference, but if they would not be there, that would not have made so much of difference, and that is where the thinking process starts. I would come to how marketers should be looking at this, but at this moment as a consumer, just look around you, think what can be reduced. So, first element is looking at things with the perspective of reduction. Now, if we are focusing upon our thought process on reduction of goods around us, if customer starts thinking that way, that means marketer should have started thinking that way much earlier, or should start thinking that way much earlier. I would be giving pertinent examples on why am I saying so. Just to break the ice, climate change and environmental considerations have brought in a marked change, wherein reduction element is the call of the day. People have started pooling cars. Now, that is towards reduction or rationalization. people have started using less of transport, people have started reducing travel except for leisure travel. So, there is a reduction perspective. There are cities wherein people do not use vehicles to start with. People have started reducing the use of bottled water and so on. So, reduction is the call. People have started rationalizing things in terms of whole of the situation. That is what customer intends to do as a response to the call of the day and whole of the environment. Marketer is also a customer, but marketer has a dual responsibility. Marketer is the provider as well, marketer is the thinker as well, and marketer has a large responsibility of development of market. So, if this is the call of the day, then how would marketer think? Have they already started thinking that way? What kinds of innovation marketer should bring in terms of marketing process, so as not to hurt themselves in the process, that means reduction of their own profits and growth, while developing the complete value chain, what they can do, and why did not they realize that earlier? I will come to that later on. Then when we are thinking in terms of reduction and rationalizing the needs, that percolates towards minimizing of wants associated with those needs. Some are compelling. Water is a major issue at this moment. Imagine a hill station which people love to go. For example, recently I heard that Himachal Pradesh, especially Shimla, was fighting tough in terms of shortage of water. That is a wonderful city, people love to visit that city and people look forward to visit that city. But what would the city do in due course of time having large number of tourists and a water crisis? What marketers should think about this? Is it just the water crisis, or a complete value chain is affected by one simple thing which we could have or should have catered to? And I am not talking about just with reference to climate change or environment perspective. This thought process can traverse into or can start from any concentric point. I am initiating this discussion with water, for example. Now, you see, when we look at this perspective, what is the responsibility of the marketer here? Should they think in terms of different hill stations other than Shimla where water is ample? That can be one. Should they be motivating customers to carry their own water when they go to hill stations? That can also be one. Customers are moving on larger vehicles, they can carry their own water as well. Should they be bringing water on board in helicopters to supply to larger hotels, and those hotels should be raising their prices as because they have unlimited supply of water? That can also be done. There are several kinds of alternatives to this when we talk about as far as water supply goes to maintain the tourism flow in Shimla, Himachal Pradesh and similar such areas. But precisely the point, this we have been doing historically. This is what has been our approach. 2 or 3 elements which I have just spoken about, you would be, and you may or even I may take it as innovation. For example, water brought in by helicopters, for example, customer taking their own water and they are motivated to take up their own water, and in today's connected world they can be guided to that, this is how you should be carrying this amount of water, should rationalize your stay, and you would not be dependent upon hotels or anyone for that matter. So, this can be an innovation per se, but would it solve the purpose? Would it grow the complete value chain? That is a major question. I would come to this side of discussion in terms of reduction of needs and wants and minimization in due course of time, and how this will guide, or these kind of thought processes when marketers they start thinking about foreseen reduction and minimization, or the need of reduction and minimization in whole of the value chain process themselves, and then develop the market and market opportunity. That is where innovation comes in, that is where true innovation comes in, and that is what we would be talking almost all through this subject apart from marketing of innovation perspective, where there also you would find the same kind of a reflection. I would be giving you very pertinent examples. I would be giving you slightly frightening examples wherein scientists have foreseen an abrupt stop in several kinds of value chain because of climate change or let us say carbon emissions or water shortage and so on, which we have oversighted completely at this moment. If we will couple up that data and their perspective, then definitely only and only marketers can save the day. Believe me, it is not an exaggerated statement when I say that marketers should bear that responsibility of associating almost everything with whatever they are doing, including the views of scientists and thinkers. But then let us slightly move towards what historically we have been doing up till now. Imagine when we did not have so much of machinery and many things were hand fabricated, including automotives. There you would have several kinds of differences between same sort of model, if I may refer to automotives. For example, two cars manufactured on the same production line, assembly line, slightly being different, or let us say not exactly in terms of whole of the dimensions, but then definitely because hand craftsmanship is utilized there. So, slight changes as far as the complete thing goes. Apparels, this was very common. When there was not so much of strength in printing technology, then definitely hand written books were there and calligraphy had a lot of differences. And these may sound little ancient in today's perspective, but definitely if you look into the history of all these things within past 150, 200 years and move towards let us say last 50 years, till last 50 years, you would find that these kind of things were quite prominent in different pockets of the world. Some countries, they took leaps and bounds in terms of technological advancements, wherein universalization of production capability brought these things to a different kinds of levels. But then there was a huge difference between as far as quality output goes, production output goes, and that compelled organizations to think in terms of universalization of quality and output. So, if we take it as the central premise, which several books elaborate upon, several research papers tell you that this is how people started thinking in terms of as far as. So, universalization is the central premise, if we may look at it. In the meanwhile, when producers, they were universalizing on things, basically developing quality standards, then they definitely were banking upon technological development to support themselves, and there was a whole lot of an industry focusing upon technology. Now, they were providing capital goods. So, these people, they started focusing upon capital goods or machinery for that matter. Machinery was made, universalization in quality outputs started coming up, but these machine makers are also producers and marketers. So, their development of business lies upon the fact that their buyers should buy more machinery. There is a depreciation cycle to whatever they sell. So, if they are focusing upon one buyer, so they must be focusing upon technological advancement to replace the machinery which they supplied to that buyer, that is one, or they must develop other buyers or other people should come into business, so that the size of the industry also grows and their sales increases. But if we focus upon their sales, then these producers, they have to focus upon larger outputs. Larger outputs means larger market, larger number of customers, and that implies lots of sales on their part. So, story starts from sales and goes towards sales. increasing the number of customers. If we are focusing upon increasing the number of customers, then either we are looking for repeated consumption or other geographies other than ours, expanding in a geographical way or consumption way. So, if we look at fast food industry for that matter, everywhere in this world, one or the other way, whichever way you look at the fast food industry, if you include chola bhatura and dosa as fast food as well, and on the other side you include burger and Dunkin Donuts as fast food as well. So, until the time they started traversing towards different kinds of geographies, they started enhancing the consumption in their own way, and they motivated people to eat more, regardless of the fact that they never looked at obesity and the repercussions of that kind of a diet people would go for, which again triggered a different kind of an industry in terms of health maintenance first, and then I do not know if somehow fast food is related to other kinds of ailments that medical science can very well tell, but historically that triggered a different kind of a situation until they started spreading in geographies. But if you are focusing upon the historical progression of fast food industry, you would realize that on one side technology enabled the procurement of raw material, processing of raw material, development of output or food, and then serving that food to larger number of customers through repeated sales, and that is how this whole scenario started developing. This is just one element of that. When we are just focusing upon how these two aspects they are behaving with each other, and story starts from universalization. So, when we go further in this story, you would realize that at this moment we have started looking at innovation within sales by just enhancing sales related communication to motivate our target customers to eat more, or later on we started focusing upon introducing our products for different geographies by going for another sales related communication to include the customers who would not have tasted the products by then. So, sales communication and then distributing the products or taking the products to that level would have been the call, or was actually the call, and that is what we may call as innovation. So, apart from that, once the story reaches towards sales, but as I started that the technology providers, they had to have more customers. So, in the process and looking at this market opportunity in terms of replication of sales and multiplication of sales, many other players started entering into similar kind of an industry, and the competition started growing. Now, this introduction of word competition demanded other forms of innovation. I will be coming to that in due course of time, when I would be focusing upon what kinds of forms of innovation were introduced historically through different elements of marketing, and how we have reached to the situation where we are compelled now to redefine things, and that would actually establish the relevance of this subject for you. Wait for me till then, keep listening to this video and start thinking in terms of that how we should be looking at market development, market opportunity development with an innovative perspective. I will be seeing you next time. Till then, goodbye.